I muted myself. Tell us your class year and where you're living.
Me? Okay.
In the chat, share it in the chat. Put your
great. Thank you.
class year, where you're currently living.
Okay.
If you want to share what hall you lived in, we love to see all those things. It's really fun to see who's here. We'll get started in just a minute.
How do you write stuff?
Just open the chat, and at the very bottom, you'll see a little message that says type message here. Just add it there and hit send.
If you're on your phone, the chat is within the 3 little dots at the bottom of your screen.
Hi, Sissy.
And you can also rename yourself to include that info too.
Oh yeah, great point, Rena. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Chris. Nicole, how do we turn the camera around so my Mills shirt, like?
Oh, I don't know. Are you on a phone?
No, I'm on the computer.
You can see your shirt. Hi, Julia.
Mills.
Awesome.
Is it backwards?
No, it's
That's great. Okay, great.
Okay.
That's great.
All right, so we're up to 600.
Hi, I'm Jill Fabricant. I saw Peggy Weber is there, so hi, Peggy, and hi, everyone.
Where's Peggy? Jill. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Sissy. It's Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Sweetie. Orchard Meadow forever. Yay!
Hey, Julia.
Mills Hall, yay.
But did mine, I'm Decky, did mine come up yet? Excuse me?
Oh,
Did I come up yet, Decky?
Probably. It's going pretty fast.
Okay, I'll type it again.
Yeah, do.
You want to know who I am? I just unmuted myself.
And Decky, I see you.
Oh, you see me, but you're
Peggy.
There's Peggy. Yeah, share it in the chat, everyone. Add your name, class year, where you're currently living. I'm loving the Mills gear. I see it.
Nicole, this is Maggie. Can I get a phone number that Albuquerque can call you? My sisters are in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and a sandstorm has disrupted their connection.
Oh, no.
And they would like to phone in. So do you have a phone number for Albuquerque, New Mexico?
Yeah, let me have Chelsea send that over to you, Maggie.
I would certainly appreciate it. Thank you so much.
She can send it in the chat, so keep an eye out in the chat for that.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Yeah, and we'll get started in just a sec. We have
Got my Mills flag.
love it.
Everybody, I'm going to put in the chat all of these.
It's starting. The Mills thing is starting.
Okay. Oh, Rebecca got that for us. Thank you. Rebecca's on my reunion team, by the way, so kudos to her for helping.
How are we so far?
Okay, good.
All right, so I think we could probably get started. Looks like we're already up to 600. We have a record turnout for tonight. So
618. 618.
I'm going to go ahead and ask everyone to mute themselves, please. And we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So on my screen, I have 18 pages of faces, and it is so nice to see you all here. Thank you for being here and joining us tonight. It is really great to see such a great turnout. So I'm going to go over just a quick welcome and some housekeeping and let you know kind of the flow of tonight's program. So we, like I mentioned, have reached our capacity. So we registered over 1,000 people. Our Zoom capacity is 1,000. And so we are just fingers crossed that everyone can get in tonight. But do know that we are recording the event and we are going to send it out to all alumni by the end of the week. The goal is to send it out by Thursday. So you'll get another copy of this. I'm glad you're all here. And for any friends who couldn't make it, please let them know. Rest assured they will get a copy of the recording very soon so that they can watch it as well. We're also going to share it in this month's Eucalyptus email newsletter. So if you missed the email this week, you can catch it in the newsletter that will go out on April 20th. So please remain on mute unless asked to unmute. I'd also like to encourage you to leave your videos on. We'd love to see your faces and see all of you who are here with us tonight. We have turned on the live transcription, but if you would like to turn it off on your display, you can do that at the bottom of your screen. Like I've mentioned before too, use the chat box, chat with one another, share who's here. We love seeing your class year, where you're currently living. If you want to include your residence hall or your major, whatever you want, please feel free to use the chat for that. For tonight's program, President Hillman will speak first, followed by Chair of the Board of Trustees, Katie Sanborn, who's the class of '83, and then Marilyn Schuster, class of '65, who is a trustee and the chair of the board's Academic and Student Experience Committee, will speak with Dr. Awan Mance, Professor of Ethnic Studies and English, and Dean of Digital Learning and Innovation. They'll both speak about the Mills Institute. Following the presentations, we'll respond to questions that were gathered in advance from all of you. We received well over 275 questions, so obviously we cannot get through them all tonight, but we will try to answer as many as possible. And of course, many of you had some of the same questions, so we're going to try to cover as much information as we can through tonight's program. And lastly, I just wanted to note that this event was originally planned to be co-hosted by the AAMC, but given the recent announcement and position of the Alumni Association, the leadership of the Board of Governors felt it was best for the college to conduct this event on our own, but they've requested the floor for a few minutes at the end of the event for Governors Maila Granberry, class of 2005, and Alexa Pagonis, class of 1991, to just say a few words, and they have a couple of questions as well. And so we're happy to provide that space at the end and share the event with them. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to President Hillman.
Thank you, Nicole. We all owe a debt of gratitude to Nicole Adams, our Associate Vice President in the Office of Institutional Advancement, for all the work she's doing right now. She's in a pretty tough place, to be honest, trying to navigate different interests right now. And I really appreciate her work bringing everybody together. And Chelsea Eckholm, who's with us too in our advancement office. Chelsea, thank you for your work too to support everybody. So Nicole, on your screen, it might only be 18 pages, but on my smaller screen, I'm at 27 and going up. So it's an awful lot of you out there. It's a great privilege to see so many people here on the Zoom. Before I start, I want to make a land acknowledgement, because though most of you are not with me on the Mills campus, I'm here on the campus of Mills College. We acknowledge the land and labor of the Ohlone people, whose connection to this land we remember and whose presence, past, present, and future, we respect. As part of Mills' mission of supporting and fostering learning through the generation and dissemination of knowledge, we acknowledge the land we're meeting on today is the original homeland of Ohlone people. So, as you know, I'm the president of Mills College. You also know Mills is a historic place of learning and creativity. You know that Mills has changed history and Mills has changed lives. And now, in order to preserve Mills' mission, I have to tell the people who love Mills the most that I should be its last president. I know you have mixed reactions about this. Some of you I have managed to respond to in the course of our conversations. Others I have not yet responded to, but I will seek to write to every person who's written to me personally and to the college about this. So far, Mills has decided that it will no longer be a degree granting institution, most likely after 2023, pending further action by the Board of Trustees. I have my own reactions to this, as do our trustees, our students, our faculty, our staff, you, the graduates of Mills College, and many other neighbors and friends and supporters of Mills. I do want to make clear to you that there is no additional vote on this decision by the board until after we have listening sessions that are coming up. So there's been information about that out there. April 15th is not a vote when we anticipate the board will do anything further on this action before we hear from people, which we schedule for April 22nd. I believe this path that we're setting out is the best path forward for Mills. And I'm going to take some time today to share more with you about how we came to this decision and where Mills is right now. I think it's important that we made this decision while we still have the resources to support our community. And I'll explain about that. So a couple of things I just want to note before we dig into those details, realizing that you came for that information primarily. That is, the COVID pandemic continues to alter our campus dramatically. The pandemic has meant we have a very small residential population on campus right now, but the students who are here, I have to say they're wonderful. When I do have a chance to interact with them, they've worked incredibly hard, and our students are laboring through the pandemic right now in order to complete their semester in good order and keep on track towards their degrees. Our faculty and staff likewise have really rallied to support students in a almost entirely virtual environment right now. Commencement plans are underway. We've actually set up plans for a mostly virtual commencement using an exciting platform, which allows a lot of interaction and a lot more people actually to engage with the celebration of our students' accomplishments this spring. We'll also have a car commencement to accompany that, where students will be able to come to the campus. And we're excited to allow that in-person interaction on the campus, and grateful that so far in Alameda County, the trends in terms of the pandemic have cooperated with our plans to open up the campus somewhat more and to do some limited in-person activities. I also wanted to talk about our academic plans for the fall. We are intending to offer more in-person opportunities in the fall, and we're working now with our faculty through the particulars of their individual courses and the programs that are out there to allow our students something that many very much want, the opportunity to be back in person, especially in the courses that are best taught that way, while we leverage the opportunities that actually we've learned from the pandemic experience of so much virtual learning and so much more opportunity to connect in ways that actually many students have long wanted us to do as well. So our provost team and all of our faculty are balancing those different needs as we plan for the fall semester. And finally, I wanted to share with you another really important change at Mills this year, and that is our commitment to becoming an anti-racist institution. Mills has long cared about gender equity, long cared about racial justice, and now Mills took the next step over the past year with its board of trustees leading the way, and also our faculty making a statement, our staff and the entire campus actually working to organize around becoming anti-racist, raising awareness of the inequities along race lines that have affected opportunities at Mills, that continue to affect opportunities at Mills, and that certainly affect our students, graduates, and community outside of Mills College. And I'm grateful for everyone who's invested in that process. And I recognize we have continued work to do, and I'm excited about the progress that we've made so far. Okay, at this point, I'm going to turn to some slides I have. These are the same slides that we shared with the faculty and staff at a town hall last week, in order to give everybody a shared understanding of where Mills is financially. So Carrie, can you pull up those slides for me? Or Nicole, who's ever running this for me? There we go, Carrie has them. Thank you, Carrie, by the way. I appreciate your work in pulling these slides together and bringing them to the town hall today. So as you can see, the title here is a financial snapshot. It's a snapshot of a relatively long period of time, but it is a specific, it is particular parts of our financial situation. So I know you have a lot of questions, and I'm happy to answer those, and I'll spend plenty of time on those too. But this is a sense overall of how we came to be where we are right now. First, our enrollment is a critical element to understand. Many of you have long supported Mills enrollment efforts to reach out to students, to recruit students, to support the students who are here on our campus, and then support the graduates as they head off into their careers. That enrollment challenge for Mills is a big part of where we are. The next thing I'll talk about is how that enrollment translates into operating losses. That is, declining enrollment means greater operating losses. I'll talk about the impact of Mills endowment and our particular cash struggles related to one-time measures that have mitigated some of those losses for us. And I'll close with a discussion of the consequences of long-term structural deficits, which have had a negative impact on the Mills community for quite a long time now. So this slide shows you the fall semester head counts, not full-time equivalent students. This is head counts actually, since 2010. And you can see there's one bar for undergraduates, one bar for graduate students, and then the orange bar is the total enrollment. The arrows on the right show you how much our enrollment has declined since 2010. So undergraduate enrollment is down more than a third. Graduate enrollment is down more than 40%, it's at 45 there. And overall, Mills enrollment decline is 40% since 2010. Okay, next slide. Another way to understand how Mills' mission has been realized and the students who we've been able to bring to Mills is to look at applications and enrollments. So Mills has, you can see this is a shorter period of time, but we listed these last 7 years or so for you, from 2014-15 to 2020 to 21. And you can see the significant decline, not only in enrollment, which was reflected on the previous slide. And there's applications, acceptances, and enrollment, and it's undergraduate and graduate here. This is for the fall, actually. So each fall, this isn't the entire student body. These are the students coming on campus in the fall. And you can see how significantly that's declined since 2014-15, the first year on this slide. Okay, next slide. How does this declining enrollment affect Mills' overall financial picture? Well, enrollment translates into revenue. It translates into mission for Mills too, and it affects our impact, honestly, but it also translates into revenues and the sustainability of the college's economic model. The net revenue from tuition and fees, to use a rough measure, is about $18,000 per student. The net revenue from residential students, in terms of room and board, is about $14,000 per student. So the lost revenue from this 40% decline is approximately $15 million annually. So it wouldn't be possible for Mills to face this with all the people who have loved Mills and worked hard at Mills here on the campus, our staff and faculty and administration, as well as our trustees, as well as our alumni. All of the alums out there who have helped us, and the Alumni Association that has helped us, has helped to roll back some of the loss in enrollment that we would have experienced but for these initiatives. I can't speak to all of the initiatives over the period of time that Mills has seen declining enrollment. Mills has never quite hit its targets in terms of getting to the targets that would enable it to be strong financially in this period of time that I showed you. But I can't tell you what, I can't tell you all that we've done in that time. I can tell you what we've done since 2016. So since 2016, we have reset our tuition. We reduced our tuition and the corresponding aid by 36% to translate the actual cost of a Mills education more effectively in hopes of increasing enrollment. That's an action you can only take once for a long period of time anyway. You can't keep doing that essentially. Next thing we did, another thing you can really only do once, is to go test optional. Mills did this long before other institutions did. This is the year when everybody went test optional, to be honest, and it's resulting in the most chaotic admissions year ever because of the pandemic preventing so many students from having the ability to even take or sit for a standardized test. The entire academic universe, all of higher ed, just about is test optional at this point, and many are test blind. Another enrollment initiative to try to reverse this decline in enrollment was a signature undergraduate experience, which was one of the measures that the AAMC generously helped support at Mills. This is an effort to actually focus particularly on the things that make Mills such a special experience for students and make them available to everybody, to package, in other words, the very best things about Mills and lift the floor for what Mills students experienced as undergraduates so that all would have access to those experiences. We also added new majors and programs, including an online master's in educational leadership. The online master's in educational leadership is another example of an initiative that would not have been possible but for the support of the AAMC. I think that I'm breaking up some. I'm getting a text about that. So Nicole, are you hearing me okay right now?
You've been breaking up just a little bit. Maybe try turning your video off just for a little bit while we do the slides.
Sure. Okay. Let me know if that's better, Nicole, and I'll try to come back onto video later. Another thing that Mills did in order to address the decline in enrollment was to work on a Mills Promise program and that has multiple parts, including a leadership academy for students who are from Promise programs, meaning efforts to increase college going by first-generation students across the Bay Area, actually in many different cities. Mills has offered scholarships to those students and offered a leadership academy to those students as a bridge program. Mills has also added initiatives to attract Black, Indigenous, people of color, and first-generation college students across the Bay Area and beyond. Mills has offered transfer guarantees and has aligned with the California independent college effort called Associate Degree Transfer, which allows more community college students to come to independent colleges and universities. And we've worked hard to build those guarantees. We actually have agreements with some 13 community colleges across California in order to make the pathway seamless from an undergraduate, from an associate's degree at a community college to an undergraduate degree at Mills. We also have been working with partners to try to increase the awareness of Mills programs and to the opportunities available to our students. We have co-branded pipelines to Mills graduate degrees with UC Berkeley. We have created a joint UC Berkeley Mills engineering program where students can spend 3 years at Mills and 2 years at Berkeley, have a degree from Mills and a degree from Berkeley. We have focused on local, in-state, and regional recruiting. I mentioned some of this already. the pathways from community colleges, that's 13 different memoranda of understanding that we worked out since 2016 with individual community colleges. And we've worked with all of the Promise programs. We've also engaged in select international recruiting, something that Mills has engaged with in different ways at different times over the years, relying on specific partners out there. We've expanded summer bridge programs, not only for Promise students from the Oakland Promise and elsewhere, but for other students, because that improves the success rates of students in their undergraduate education. And we've added a bachelor's degree completion program, which specifically reaches out to students who had not finished their Mills degree, that had some credits towards their degree, who could come back to Mills and study in order to enhance their, in order to earn that degree that they hadn't finished yet. Am I still breaking up, Nicole?
No, you're sounding way better.
Okay. The next things that we did, it's not only efforts in enrollment, although efforts in enrollment have been at the centerpiece of what Mills has done to seek to roll back the decline in enrollment that is largely a result of national changes across higher education and structural shifts across our sector. We've also undertaken a huge number of other measures to try to restore our financial stability. And I'm going to speak to those that we've done since 2016. We have monetized singular assets. These are things that we can't do more than once. We can only do once. We have sold things that would actually allow us to generate revenue to support our academic programs in our community. We have reduced operating expenses and instructional costs. We have reduced employee benefits and executive compensation. We have set out hiring freezes, except for critical positions. We have implemented campus sharing programs in order to share our campus with others, others who could take advantage of the spaces that we were not utilizing completely. And we worked to develop and optimize the uses of underutilized space, including looking at how to drive potential revenue to Mills academic programs. And finally, we explored partnerships that could actually help us with all of the different pieces that we're talking about here, the operating revenues, the potential in students and enrollment, and the ways in which we were using our campus and able to address our the needs of our academic programs. This is a slide that shows you the history of unrestricted operating losses from fiscal year 2003 to fiscal year 2020. So this shows you, and this is a chart that's in millions, and it's from our audited financial statements. It shows you how many years Mills has had a significant operating loss. Now, there are 2 years where Mills did not have an operating loss. And remember, the difference really between a nonprofit and a for-profit is that a for-profit distributes its profits potentially to those who are supporting it. But a nonprofit has to actually balance its budget so that it can meet its expenses and continue to run. People who work for nonprofits continue to, we need to pay everybody. We need to cover our expenses. We need to improve our buildings. We need to sustain our enterprise. You can see there are 2 years when there is actually a gain. That's because bequests and other cash revenues count in these. Mills undertook significant shifts of bequests that went into cover operating losses in that year, 2009, that was a lot of generous bequests actually that Mills received in that year that made a difference and that were put into the operating budget. And then you can see in 2020, we actually also had a positive result in our unrestricted operating losses. And that's largely because of the federal revenues that came in because of the COVID support and also because of bequests that we used to offset other losses. Thank you, Naya. Okay, I want to stress that those losses that I just showed you are actually understated by one-time actions that we cannot repeat. And specifically, we have relied on those in recent years because we didn't have other unrestricted assets that we could use to cover our expenses. You can see almost $12 million we've realized from the sale of campus assets since 2019 in order to continue to support our students and community. Also, just since 2019, we've done what I showed you had happened before. We've used over $4 million in bequests to cover operations. Ordinarily, we would push those into the endowment to increase the endowed funds. And instead, we've actually had to use them to cover current operating costs. One of our challenges has been that the endowment hasn't grown at the rate that it would if we hadn't maintained an above market payout rate. 5% is generally accepted as the maximum sustainable endowment payout rate. We have been above that, and we've returned to above that in the pandemic because of the need for cash to cover our operating expenses. Eventually, we need to return that to a more standard rate. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the opportunity to continue to pay for it. The endowment needs to grow in order to cover the same expenses in the future that it covers now. So the endowment hasn't grown as much as it would otherwise because we have used bequests to cover operating expenses, and because the payout rate has been above what the generally accepted maximum sustainable endowment payout rate is. So why now, and where are we now? So that we have a cash challenge moving ahead, and this is something that institutions face at different points in time. Mills has historically relied on lines of credit to cover cash needs at different points in the year because the revenues that come in aren't consistent throughout the year. We ordinarily negotiate lines of credit. Our existing line of credit has been a 4-year line. It's reduced now to $5 million from $8 million 4 years ago, and it expires in March 2022. It's difficult to obtain new lines of credit when you have as many operating losses as Mills has had. Mills also has been supported by the AAMC. We owe the AAMC $2 million for a loan that it made in support of our students' signature undergraduate initiative and the online masters in educational leadership. Based on the enrollment projections that we saw early this year, fiscal year 22 and future fiscal years were likely to generate continued multi-million-dollar operating deficits. The result is insufficient cash to continue existing operations into the future. So the consequences of the structural deficits. What does it matter that we've been running these kinds of deficits? I mentioned some of those consequences and also mentioned that those deficits understate the reality of the difference between operating expenses and revenues. But for a campus like Mills, the deferred maintenance costs are very high. A campus that's not kept up to date does eventually result in very high costs. If we don't raise funds or take on debt to cover those costs, they eventually result in an inability to continue our operations. So right now we're facing rising future costs for campus maintenance, but we also face some current issues that we need to address in the short term that are not reflected in our budget and that we don't have the cash to pay for. Those include improvements that are required under the ADA to improve the accessibility of our campus. They include sewer lateral improvements that are required by the local authorities, East Bay Mud. And they also include air quality improvements that we need to make in our boilers. This is just one example of the compliance costs that we have to reckon with that we can't cover within our operating budgets when we're running at a deficit.